thanks everyone for joining with me here. I was asked to speak on lessons learned working with. There's a lot of different words for this. The word that I in my planning studies kind of most resonated with was disinvested communities. And the reason that I resonated with the term disinvested communities is they really highlight that these are communities that have not had the same level of investment from government as other communities. And there are a lot of reasons that that might happen. It's not necessarily always an intentional decision. It has in the past been an intentional decision, but often it's simply there are barriers that people in local government are not able to overcome to interact with and invest in these communities in the same amount of time, effort that we give other ones. I had the privilege of working with a number of these communities, both as a private student and then individual, and then in my work with the conservation district. So I'm going to tell you some stories from my time there in hope that you can kind of learn from my mistakes. And yes, we are in fact going to be talking about my mistakes. So welcome. You may have a series of questions. The first one is, who is this guy? What are we doing here? What is he talking about? And why are we talking about this? And I'm going to try to answer all of those to start with so we can get on the same footing and we can continue on learning from my mistakes. Oh, and then what is the plan? Sorry, I missed that last one. So the plan is this. I'm going to tell you my background. We're going to talk briefly about today's subject and why I think it's so valuable. We're going to go through a series of the mistakes that I've made and the lessons that I learned from them. And then we'll have time for questions at the end. It's a fairly small group, so if you do have questions as I'm going and you want to put your hand up, feel free, but I am going to set aside time for questions at the end. So my background, I started this particular part of my career, University of Washington, Bothell, studying environmental studies and restoration. After that, I went to work on a series of local rain garden projects, often in communities that had historically been disinvested. There was essentially a decision made by a few different government agencies to sort of backfill in those and try to get some drainage and infrastructure and some decentralized infrastructure. So I spent a lot of time doing that. While I was doing that, I was also volunteering and eventually volunteer coordinating wetland and riparian restoration. And then I was working with some people at the time on student-led restoration and agriculture. I started working at the Snohomish Conservation District, where most of these stories are going to come from, just because that's where I spent most of my time and had most of these contact with these communities. I went back to school to the University of Washington to complete infrastructure planning, which is also where some of this information is coming from. And I am now with the city of Marysville. Today's subject is about disinvested and overburdened communities. Two really good terms, like I told you why I like the idea of disinvested. Overburdened can also mean financial. It can mean environmental impacts. It can mean a lot of different things. I think those two terms together are very valuable. We're going to go over lessons learned for someone who has had to learn a lot of lessons. Listen, I'm happy to talk about the mistakes that I've made. If what you're looking for is someone who is on the ground trying their best and making mistakes, I'm happy to talk about it. And then this was something that Lori sent on to me that I really liked when talking about sort of what we wanted the focus to be: issues, resources, tools, and obligations. And I think those four terms are fantastic. And that is how we should approach any of these sort of issues. Look at the issues, look at the resources, look at the tools, and what are our obligations. So like I said, we're going to learn from my mistakes. We learn by doing, which means we often learn from mistakes because we try to do something, we don't do it right. We learn how to do it better. I have made a lot of mistakes while trying my best to do the right thing. Wanting to do the right thing doesn't reduce the harm that you may cause from your mistakes, but not learning from them, I truly believe, compounds that. So it's not a matter of, oh, well, I learned my lesson, so it's all okay. But failure to learn the lesson means you've committed another mistake. So we're going to talk about some of my mistakes and the lessons that I was fortunate enough to be able to learn from. But as has already been discussed, happy Valentine's Day. It is Valentine's Day. I want to call it Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. And just like building any relationship, remember, it's all about communication, finding common interests, and building trust. That's true of relationships, and that's true of us as government servants as well. All right, so get right into my mistakes. First mistake, agriculture and climate change. I was working on a climate change report that was, I was working on a stormwater component of a climate change report that was specifically aimed at agriculture and natural resources. And it was meant to engage with people. What are the natural resources that that are at threat for because of climate change, and sort of what do we need to do to protect those? I went in with an attitude that I was going to get people on my side. The term that kept being used was coalition building. I don't think coalition building is a bad word, but if you go in with the attitude, I'm right, and my job is to get people on my side, you're going to miss some opportunities. I also went in with an attitude that everything was urgent, that this was a big deal and it needed to be fixed now, and I need all of you to get on my side immediately. And people didn't want to listen to me. They didn't want to listen to someone who wasn't listening to them. Didn't want to listen to someone who was giving them direction instead of asking what they needed. And they really didn't want to listen to someone who was telling them something that they already knew. I was working with farmers. I was working with river stewards. I was working with people who lived and worked really close to the land. And these were all things that they knew. They knew this stuff that I was trying to tell them. But I didn't take that approach. I went in thinking, I know all this stuff and I need to get you on my side. They were already on my side. So the lesson is you can't be a know-it-all and a student. I've tried. I've been a student for a good chunk of my life, and being a know-it-all has never worked well for me. So you start by listening, not talking. Understand what is facing people. You can approach with solutions. You can approach with solutions. I like the term approach with solutions. You can do that in a couple ways. You can ask them what they need and then go get it for them, or you can go get things that might help and ask them if they need any of it. But you can't show up and tell people, this is what you need and I brought it to you. Because you don't know that that's necessarily true. And they might have a different idea of what they need. And I've done a lot of work getting grants and having resources, and it's always come down to one of these two approaches. You either start from a place of partnership, what do you need? How can I go get it for you? Or you go, I have a grant to do this work. Are you interested in that? So you have a plan, but not like a plan. I went to school for planning. I like having plans. I like making plans. I like schedules and Gantt charts and lists. It does not always work out the way that you want, and you have to have the humility to walk back and go, all right, I have an idea of how this is going to go. I'm going to hold on to this loosely, and if somebody has a better idea, I'm going to go with it. This is a marathon, not a sprint, hopefully. Ideally, you're working with these communities for a long time. And in working with these communities for a long time, you want to set yourself up to work with them for a while in the future. Don't try to start out by getting things done. Start by talking with people and building those relationships. Here was another mistake, Spanish-speaking GSI outreach. So for this one, I'm going to give you a couple short snippets of conversation that I had while we were trying to problem solve the reason essentially outreach with Spanish-speaking communities. We can only do projects with people who respond to our outreach. And I'm guessing because I've prompted you, y'all are going to know what the response was. Well, is the outreach only in English? It's a pretty big barrier. If you're putting all your flyers and stuff in a language people don't speak, I occasionally get mail in languages that I don't speak, and you know what happens? I don't do anything about it because I don't know what it's asking me to do. So is the project only available to people who own homes? Are we only doing in-person outreach and special resources when people are at work? These were all conversations that we had around this when we started wondering, why are we only getting certain types of folks? Why aren't we getting, a broader spectrum? Well, we weren't asking the right questions, and we weren't being sensitive to when we could engage with people. So make sure you include everyone. That's a really broad way to put this. So we're going to break it down a little bit further. There's some things you can do to make sure you include everyone. And by the way, I'm not the ultimate authority at this, because most of the times that I've been able to include everyone has been times that people have been very kind in telling me how I can include them. So people are busy. Know their schedule really helps. Know their work schedule, know their social schedule. Helping a friend with some stuff, and they had a whole issue around, well, we aren't getting engagement from this particular group of people, and we think that there's an issue with this, and maybe they're, like, we need to change up our tactics, we need to approach this. And this woman who happened to be a member of this group said, this is everything you're scheduling is in the middle of a religious holiday. There's a week-long religious holiday that people aren't doing any of these things, and you've dropped all these events right in the middle of it. So they're not responding because they're doing something else. They're doing something more important to them. Needing to know when people are at work. I did a series of outreach and was ready to give presentations very similar to this one. And it turns out that I was doing that while people were in the middle of their jobs because they work different hours than me. Know how to communicate, know what people want to hear and how they want the message delivered. This is a big part of this, is talking to people in the community who can engage with you and are able to give you this information. Understand people's limitations, understand why they might not be responsive, and then choose your entry point. So this, there was a guy who I used to work with named Joe, who's phenomenal at this. He was an absolute savant at finding entry points. Do you have a community member that you're already talking to? Do you have a group that is a representative of that you can ask questions of? And do you know which groups are already included or left out? These were sort of his 3 pillars, and he was always able to find the people he needed to talk to, and from there was able to create these entry points and talk to communities abroad. He's wonderful at it. He's writing policy in Olympia now. We're all very proud. But he was incredible at this, and I learned a lot from him. And you might not know that you have everyone until it's too late. I should say you might not know if you have everyone. So have some humility and be ready to backtrack. If you suddenly realize that you don't have everybody and that a group was left out of this conversation, be ready to start over. You didn't get them the first time. Got to go back and try again. And sometimes that's as easy as, hey, I'm sorry, we missed you. Here's the information. And sometimes that's, all right, well, with this group of people, we're going to have to start over from square one, even though if we're at square 9 with this other group, we're going to have to start over. So it's right-of-way rain gardens. We had a project with the city. We were going to install rain gardens in the right-of-way. It's a great project. We were very excited. We weren't working with individual homeowners because it was installed in the right-of-way. The city was our primary client. It was great. However, everyone who works in cities knows, the right-of-way extends into what people typically consider to be their front yard. That is, they believe that they have, that their whole yard is theirs. And it's not always clear to them where the right-of-way starts. Sometimes it is, sometimes there's a fence, sidewalk, or something like that. But a lot of times they feel ownership over that section. We did outreach via mail and door knocking. We walked around, we knocked on people's doors, again, while we were at work. We sent mail, we sent email, we did all this stuff to say, hey, this project is coming. Let us know if you want to get involved, blah, 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 blah. We followed up by email, and we held a meeting. Held a big meeting, said, hey, here's what we want to do, blah, 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 blah. Nobody showed up. And we thought, all right, no one really cares. We're doing work in the right-of-way. They don't feel like it's their area. They're fine with us doing the work. Who cares? No one has any issues. We're good, right? Everyone's good? No? Blaine shaking his head? What about this format that I've set up makes you think that we aren't good? Have I set up a format where I'm telling you about a horrible mistake that I've made? Yeah, we got the first heavy rain and the whole project backed up because it takes a while for rain gardens to start functioning at their optimum capacity. We got hit with a heavy rain like 2 months after the project finished. People were very, very mad. My end of year holiday vacation actually got interrupted because I had to go back out and talk with people in an absolute downpour and walk them through the process, doing the outreach that we should have done the first time. Lesson is silence is not a go-ahead. This should be clear to a lot of people, but don't assume things. If you hear silence, that's not a green light. That's a big sign that you have missed a step with talking to people about how this process goes. So don't assume things. There are several reasons that somebody might not respond. They might not understand. They might not understand what this has to do with them. They might not understand the impacts that this has to their yard. They might not understand the terms that you're using. They might not understand who the heck you are. People might need to take time to respond or might need to be engaged. This was the biggest deal. This is also, I talk about this being a mistake. This is also the very first time, and so far the only time in my career as a public servant, that I have gotten an apology letter. And it was only because we went out and over the course of months, talked to people, like made changes that they should have asked for the first time, but we were able to make now, replant things. Now we were engaging with the community. And by the time that we were done, almost a year to the day after, I got a letter that said, "You were right, I was wrong. This is a great project and thank you." That's never happened before, but I still count this one as a mistake. It has not happened before, has not happened since. I still count this one as a mistake because that should have happened the first time. I should have been out there myself the first time. We should have made changes in our schedule. We should have gone after people were home from work. We should have left more detailed information. We should have talked to people a couple times. The people that you will take for granted will come back twice as loud as soon as they have a chance, because people like to complain about stuff. And sometimes they're very justified in doing so. They were very justified in being mad about this project after the fact because we didn't engage them. We should have. All right, site visits. I don't know how many of y'all do site visits. It was a huge part of what I did in the conservation district. They are challenging because they are a very awkward chunk of the day. Site visits are typically around half an hour to an hour. They usually happen either at the very beginning of the day, the very end of your day, or an awkward time in the middle. And you usually have to travel, so it just takes a weird chunk out of your day. As a result, you often want to get them done and move on. You want to just knock them out and then be like, all right, cool, we're done. Yeah, I'm going to send you a thing. I'll send you a technical assistance letter. I'll send you some resources. I'll send you whatever else and move on with your day and forget about that. Want to get them done. But these site visits are based around issues around flooding, damage, mitigation, and other environmental impacts. These are really heavy things that we're working with people. These impact people's homes, communities, environment, often their children, often their schools, places that they care very deeply about. They cannot be something that is just done and moved on. You have to take time to listen and follow up. They are one of a dozen things that you need to do that day. You are potentially one of the biggest things of that week. There's a massive disparity in that. They may have to have redone their schedule for you. You are likely a big deal to them. And the issue that they're facing may be trivial for you, but it's a big deal for them as well. And I left this in, I almost took it out. If nobody gets this, we will simply move on, but don't be like M. Bison. Anybody get that reference? The old Street Fighter movie? I'm not going to take the time to explain it. The quote is, "The day that M. Bison came to your village was the most important day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday." Don't be like M. Bison. It can't just be a Tuesday for you. You really have to invest in the time. This is an exercise that helped, and I will try to be brief on this, but I suggest that the folks look it up. It's called the Troika. So there's groups of three, a client and two consultants. Client and consultants speak in turns for 5 minutes, a total of 5 minutes per round. The client has 1 minute to describe their issue or question. So they describe an issue or ask a question. The consultants have 2 minutes to ask clarifying questions of the client. Then the client turns around and does not engage with the consultant at all. And the consultants discuss the solution. The client cannot, you can't engage, you can't show their face, you can't anything else. And you have to listen to the consultants discussing your issue. You rotate through the group members. Once each person has occupied a position, you break up and you form new groups, but you keep the same question. The clients learn to refine their ask. So with each group, they go, oh, I'm going to learn how to ask that question better. I'm going to learn how to state my problem better. The consultants learn to listen without jumping straight to solutions. This was the thing that changed things for how my team did stuff, because we would get out on site visits and we go, oh, it's a drainage issue. Oh, we're going to want to do this, this, and this. Start by listening. You can't interject. You can't come up with a solution. You just have to listen for a minute. You then have 2 minutes not to come up with a solution, but to just ask questions. After you have that, then you can come up with solutions. Breaking it down into those 3 steps. Start by listening, ask questions to understand, then you can start thinking of solutions. Change the way that my teams did site visits. All right, another mistake, acronyms and jargon. We use a lot of acronyms and a lot of jargon, and people do not necessarily understand what we're talking about. I've done this a number of times, so here are some of my highlights. I was working on a low-income housing project, and I kept explaining very proudly that we were going to do all sorts of stuff to make this project low impact. I meant low impact on the environment. But these people who are working on affordable housing just kept hearing how low impact this project was going to be. I did not explain that the G in GSI stands for green instead of gray, because I earlier in that conversation said, well, we work in green infrastructure. This project, blah, 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 does gray infrastructure, and then started talking about GSI. Green and gray both start with G. They didn't know what I was talking about. I had to backtrack and explain. I did an entire talk on using GIS, Geographic Information Services, in GSI, Green Stormwater Infrastructure, because I thought it sounded fun. I rewrote that after 2 times because the only questions I was getting was, I don't understand what you're talking about. So this is, I think that this one will apply to more than just me, but I hope it isn't just me. Talk to people like you're explaining your job to your friends or family. My friends and family kind of don't know what my job is. It's a quick anecdote. When I met my sister's boyfriend, now her husband, and my brother-in-law, I had to explain why an environmental scientist worked in cities. He just didn't get it. And I had to really explain what my job was. You're gonna have to go like to preschool with some folks to really get across what it is that you're doing and the nuances of your job. This is not because people are not smart. People are very smart, but they do not have your expertise. They not have your education or expertise, by which I mean they have not attended your exact classes and training. There are other people who graduated from my class who also don't understand what I do, even though we basically went through the same school because we haven't had the same career. Treat people like they are intelligent, but you are speaking different languages. This is doubly true if you are speaking different languages. And please remember that jargon does not always translate. One of the best things you can do if you are doing outreach in a language that you do not speak is to find someone who can do the talking for you. We're going to talk about that one in a minute. But being able to put something from a native speaker is enormously helpful. Your jargon is not always going to translate. It seldom will. Be aware of what they need to know and don't overload them with what you want to know. I am a very excitable person. If you haven't been able to tell from this entire presentation, it is really hard for me to pare back and just say, this is what you need to know, not just all the things that I think are cool. And avoid TLAs until you have explained them and they're easily recognizable. TLA stands for 3-letter acronym. This is true of all acronyms. In general, anything that you're going to shorten up. Changing up the formula. The mistake for this one is none. I didn't make a mistake on this one, thank God. This is something that I learned in school. And a lot of academic and professional resources backed me up on this, so I was able to make the case. We also have the benefit of timing and the national conversation at the time. And sometimes you have to learn by planning ahead and making and paying attention, making the best decisions you can. drum roll for what this mistake that I didn't make was pay for services. We had people who were willing, native speakers, to coordinate for us. We had people who were willing to translate and interpret for us. We had people who were willing to be the bridge and host events. A lot of them wanted to work for free because they cared about their community and they saw the value of what we were doing. Paying for work up front is very important to establish early. These are people that ideally you're going to be working with for a while, and you want them to believe that they can count on you. You do not want to get to a point where after someone's been working with you for a couple years, they're like, this is more than I was getting into, and I need to start asking for that, because they probably won't. Start early, say, no, listen, we're going to pay you for your time, even if it's nominal fee, even if it's donation, you do whatever you want with the money, put it back in the community, whatever you want to do, but establish this early. It's going to make things easier down the line. So right now, I know that some of you are asking, especially because most of your cameras are off, is this guy still talking? Yes, I am. I regret to inform you. And you're also probably asking, can you sum all this up in a few bullet points? And yes, I can. 1, start by listening and listen to understand. 2, wonder why you aren't getting responses. Be curious about that. 3, think about what and how you say things. 4, pay folks for their time. 5, this is a marathon, not a race. And the thing that I have to keep learning over and over again, and I have to keep explaining to people, no community is made up of one kind of person. I'm not an expert on any of the things that I've just told you about. I'm someone who made a lot of mistakes and was able, and times humble, and at times had people who were gracious enough to teach me from them. It is very, very easy to think that these are catch-all rules or that they apply to every situation. No community is a monolith. You are always going to have different people, and the number one thing that you can do to engage with communities is give them time and effort. Listen to them, take them seriously, but give them the respect of time and effort, and try to genuinely make a connection to help them. And that's all for me. My name is David Jackson, the NPDES coordinator for the city of Marysville.